everyone. Welcome to the ACL year-round mentorship. So today's session will be a popular one about grad school suggestions. And we're very lucky to have five of us on the panel, and then we can introduce ourselves one by one. I can start. I'm one of the co-organizers of the ACL mentorship. I'm Zhijing, and I work on causality and NLP now as a PhD at Max Planck Institute at ETH. Maybe we can go alphabetically by first name. So Luke first.
Oh, it's surprising. I'm never first alphabetically. I'm Luke Zettlemoyer, faculty at the University of Washington for over 12 years now. So I've been through these cycles a few times, and I'm happy to try to help however I can.
Great. Then we'll pass to Nathan, then Oana, then Yuntian.
Hi, I'm Nathan Schneider. I'm at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
That's very short. Hi, my name is Yuntian. I work on natural language processing and machine learning. I just graduated from my PhD, working with professors Alexander Rush and Stuart Schieber. And now I'm a postdoc at AI2, working with Professor Zhijing. And next year I will join University of Waterloo and I'll start my own group.
Nice. So you're in the most interesting career stage, like at the intersection of three.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Nice. And then we go to Oana.
Everyone, I'm Oana. I'm a postdoc at the University of Michigan. I work with Rada Mihalcea on multimodal AI.
Nice, nice. Great to have all in the panel. And then we'll also probably release our Slido link where we can open questions for the students. I can do a kick-off one potentially. Like, for example, we can start with potentially, like, let's say if a student is not from a top 10 institution, then what might be some good things that they can do to enhance the strengths of their profile and apply to strong NLP groups. We probably can also have a version for if a student is from a non-US place, then what do US schools usually look at in applications from countries they might not be that familiar with? Yeah, any thought is good.
Do you want to call on someone? I can go first, I guess, if you want. But in general, maybe take turns, I guess. So, I think this being from a top school does help with visibility, but actually more than you would think, we really are just looking for research potential. Like grades kind of matter, school kind of matters, letters matter a lot, but the thing that really matters is, and that helps to be at a place where we know the people that can write letters. What really helps is just to show that you're going to be able to do great research. That's kind of the only real question in admissions is like, will this person be able to make the transition and do really amazing work? And you can be creative about how you show that evidence. Ideally projects you've done, or if you've actually finished research projects, or if you have industry experience that you can kind of bring into it, or there's sort of so many different ways you can do that. And it's not really a rigid thing about like your GPA must be this and your school rank must be that, and you must have this person write you a letter even though they really know nothing about you. Like all that's kind of wrong. What really matters is like, can you do research or not? Or not that you know how to do it already, but will you be able to develop into an amazing researcher?
Yeah, so
I
guess I'll go next. So I agree with everything Luke just said. I'll add my spin on this, which for me, the statement of purpose is a really important piece of evidence. And I actually wrote a blog post about this a few years ago, so I'll share this in the chat about what I look for in a statement of purpose. And it's really about like, what is your, well, so I break it down into three things: qualifications, focus, and fit. So this is your chance to tell the admissions committee about you in a way that demonstrates that you're on a path to becoming a great researcher. So qualifications are what are the sorts of experiences you've had with research in, ideally in NLP or related areas, showing what you contributed to different research projects you've been involved in what capacity, how did you contribute, what did you learn from these things, what topics did you work on, and also just sort of showing that you have some familiarity with the field and what you would want to do as a grad student. You don't have to know your dissertation topic, right? Especially in the US where a PhD is 5 years, you have a lot of time to develop your interests in more depth. But we want a general sense of like what kind of research excites you, or what kind of topics excite you. And so your statement of purpose should talk about what you've done and like what excites you about that work or future work you might do. And then also the focus. So what, how would you use your time in a PhD program? What sorts of topics excite you going forward? And then fit is pretty important. That's why are you applying to this place? And you don't have to say a whole lot about this usually. Usually it's a little paragraph at the end. I'm applying to this university because these 2 or 3 faculty members are really working on topics that I think are a good fit. And so I get a lot of applications that are just sort of like, I'm generically interested in machine learning or different types of NLP. But for me, it's important that the candidate has thought about why they would want to work with me or, someone like me and not just a generic NLP researcher.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what Luke and Nathan just said. Actually, yesterday I asked my PhD advisor what he looks for when he evaluates PhD applications. And I think he said basically the exact same thing. He's looking for someone who shows the ability to do independent research in computer science. And obviously the best way to show you have the ability to do independent research in CS is to show that you have already done that as an undergrad student, but that might be hard. That might require you to actually have done research as an undergrad, but you can also potentially show that even in the course projects that you have worked on. For example, you can show what kind of challenges you faced, what problems you identified, and also how you solved it. And that might show your potential as an independent researcher.
Great. Yeah, thanks for all the suggestions.
I also want to add that I haven't officially begun the kind of like looking at applications yet, but recently I kind of received some emails from prospective PhD applicants, and yeah, I think echoing what Nathan just said is, I noticed that some of the emails are kind of quite generic. Sometimes I can even tell that the emails are generated by a language model such as ChatGPT. For example, I got an email saying that I want to join your prestigious group, but because I haven't established a group yet, it's just me. I can tell that this is kind of like either kind of too generic, or it's probably just generated by kind of these kind of writing assistance tools. And I feel that showing that you have done your research in kind of what this person or what this group you are applying to is working on and how it aligns with your research interests, I think that would help a lot. For example, if I see that this email is quite generic, somebody mentioning that they just want to work on NLP, I would probably just ignore it because I have a lot of emails like that. But if it's more kind of specific, if the person who sent me an email mentioned some of my papers, I would kind of make sure to reply to those kind of emails.
Yeah, very nice suggestion on personalization. I think that's a very good point. A lot of the times when I observe these generic emails, it could also be that the student didn't know how it works, that they didn't know that a little bit more time into customization will lead to much higher response rates. Maybe a way, just in case the professors are very busy, you can also contact the PhD students to get to know better the priorities in the group. And also very likely, if you are not yet applying this year, but still open for research experience, you could potentially work with a PhD student a bit and see how the research is like. Great. Next, I think Oana and I will iterate, and then we will raise questions, speak out the questions from Slido one by one. And then I'll quickly pass the stage to Oana, but maybe we can also do a little bit poll on how many years are you from submitting the PhD application. For example, if you're submitting this year, you can say 0. And then if you are still 1 year from application, you can have 1. Or if you are many years from application, you can just type the number. Great. Then I'll pass the stage to Oana.
Yeah, thank you, Zhijing. I really like the poll. So everyone, you can write in the chat. So in the chat, right, they can write the number. Yeah, nice. -4. Oh, okay, yeah. I like that. I'm -5.
I'm minus something very big.
Oh, a lot of people are applying this year. A lot of zeros. Nice. Okay, so this topic is very relevant to you. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. And we already have voted questions in the Slido link. So I'm gonna read the first question, the most voted one. Thank you so much for being active there, and continue voting the questions and asking new ones, please. So the first question is, how important are publications for the application? I have one under review and one recently rejected. Does that negatively impact my application?
Given that I'm not muted, I have not muted myself, I can probably answer this question. I don't think so. I think it's very impressive, to be honest, to have kind of one paper under review and another paper submitted when you apply to PhD. Although maybe the bar is kind of higher this year. When I applied, I only have like one paper, and I think it doesn't really matter whether your paper got rejected or not. Especially, I think for like more junior person like me. So because I want to be really kind of careful in which students I admit. So if they can send me even like archive versions of their paper, I will kind of take a look and see if it's kind of high quality research. So to me, it doesn't matter that much whether the paper is accepted or it was rejected, as long as it's kind of high quality work, and also even better if it aligns with my interests. I think that kind of paper reviews don't matter that much.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with listing on your CV that a paper was submitted or under review or you know, a preprint or whatever. Yeah, I would say for me, it's more about the content of your research experience and whether if that resulted in a publication, great. If that resulted in a master's thesis or bachelor's thesis, that's great too. But it's you know, I'm not looking for specific CV items. I'm looking for the totality of like what have you done in terms of the knowledge you've built up and the ideas you've put forward.
Yeah, and I would just add a small caveat or a little bit more flavor to some of this, which is that, you know, it's not just sort of paper, no paper, it's also kind of what was your contribution, and the letter writers often help with that, or like the author position helps with that. But, you know, if somebody did a really amazing NLP project and you sort of, you know, built a user interface for it or something, and you're a middle author and you didn't really contribute anything to the paper, like that's just, it's not going to hurt. It's not bad to have that there, but it's not evidence that you can do great research. So, you know, feel free to list everything you've done. It's not going to hurt at all. But the more evidence you can provide, you can do research. That's really that's the context in which you want to think about potential papers.
Great, thanks for the insight. I guess some of the view could be considered could consider a causal graph where you have your research ability as the cause, and then the publication you result in is sort of an effect, downstream effect of it. And also a good letter of recommendation is a proof of that as well. So probably you want to capture the root cause without focusing too much on the leaf nodes. Great. So I'll probably pick one more diverse question apart from paper questions. So one of the students asked, most of my research is in socio-technical applications of LLMs, but here the faculty on this panel work on fundamental stuff instead. How do I establish a fit there?
I think, I'm not sure if it matters what we're doing on this panel, but I think you want to think about the faculty that you want to work with at each university and try to, as much as possible, customize, so first of all, like if there's a university where all the faculty are doing stuff that you just can't imagine possibly doing, then that's not going to be a great fit for you. That's usually not the case for most applicants, right? Like, even though we ask you to write in your research statement exactly what you want to do, we know there's some flexibility there, and most people change over time and stuff. But as much as you can kind of think about who you could potentially work with and contextualize your background relative to that, that's, again, it's all about making that case for what you could do if you came. And I think it's okay to have research experience in an area that's different than you want to work on going forward. So if it does match up, lean into it. Great, you're done. Write about it. Tell us all about it. It'll be awesome. And if it doesn't match up, that's okay too. I think you can still explain it and you can contextualize it relative to like the skills you learn that would generalize, and just tell us what you want to do. And any research experience is great from my perspective. You don't have to have exact research experience in the thing that you're going to do, that you want to do. And I don't even believe that you're going to change your mind anyways. It's kind of my mindset, and that's all healthy and good, like in a good way.
Yeah, I guess I would underscore the point that you should be very deliberate about where you apply. Don't just apply to the top 10 schools or based on some ranking. The top 10 schools are going to get massive numbers of applications, and it's probably just a lottery at that point, even for the best, even if you're one of the best applicants. But there are lots of great NLP groups in lots of different kinds of schools. And so look for like sub areas within the field that you're really excited about, and who are the faculty in those areas, and what schools are they at.
Yeah, and also I want to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so sorry. I'll just also put in a plug that probably most people here are thinking CS departments, but it's not just CS departments that do NLP. I'm also in a linguistics department, and there are information schools and other places where there is NLP research. So don't just think it has to be in a CS department.
I wanted to add that based on my own experience applying to different schools, it's very hard to actually customize your statement of purpose based on which departments or which groups you apply to. So I think it's generally better to just write the kind of research you want to do, and maybe kind of use one paragraph to mention how these people at this department are doing some relevant research, instead of trying to kind of customize your statement of purpose based on which people that you are applying to.
Thank you so much. I see a lot of questions. I'm gonna try to address one that is maybe a bit more diverse. So this one I like. How to address mitigating factors such as personal health related issue or health related issues in the application.
I'm always happy to go first on anyone. I don't know, have particular insight onto this one other than I think it's a very personal decision. I think that if you feel like it will help your case, like, you know, maybe there was a gap in your record and you have a very clear reason for that, and it's not, you know, honestly, my experience has been that we don't obsess about that kind of stuff too much, like compared to, say, industry jobs or something where they'll go through and scrutinize every year and exactly what you're doing. We tend to not do that as much. We're just looking at kind of the max of like what the evidence we have, and not like micromanaging every little thing. But if you felt it would help to like explain something like that, I don't think it would ever hurt to kind of give that extra context. But I'm not sure that you really need to be honest. Like, you can really just focus on the research and focus on what you want to do, and that's going to be, you know, great. I mean, I think if there's like a really big gap or something that really stands out, like if you got your bachelor's 10 years ago or something, that might be a little bit different. But in general, you know, make the case, tell us the positive parts of your background and your experiences and how it prepares you. Again, I don't think it hurts to disclose, and so I think you certainly could, and I don't think anybody would hold it against you. But I'm not sure that you really have to. Would be my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would only hurt you if you focus on the negative things that happened instead of focusing on the like what your positive things you're bringing to the table are. You know, I maybe things that would cause a red flag in looking at the application is if you got, you know, C's in NLP classes and you're applying to go to work in NLP. And that might be something, you know, if there was just something that you had a personal thing that semester, but then you went on and did some NLP research and came back from that, you know, that could be worth explaining. Another idea, if you have a situation like that, is to talk to the people writing you letters and ask for their advice. So maybe they would be able to work that into their letter, some explanation of your situation in a way that doesn't come across as, you know, making excuses.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think the kind of receiving end of your application are just kind of like normal kind of human beings. So human beings are empathetic, and yeah, just if you think that there's some issues that affects your, you know, ability to do research, and needs some kind of explanation, I think it doesn't hurt your application.
Well, thanks for the insights. Now we will move on to more practical questions, and we can probably also shorten the answer so that we can address more questions. So the top voted one is, if a recommendation letter writer can only submit a maximum of 5 letters, how can I make a decision on which universities to apply to? Also extending that question, I know a common scenario could be that none of the letter writers are the first order neighbor in the social network of the schools you want to apply to. Then what might be a good way to strategize the application?
So I would rather see a letter from somebody who knows the candidate well and has seen them do research and so on, than a letter from somebody who had them in a class and just says they did well in the class. So that matters more than prestige.
Cool. And then it'll be using the 5 school quota to choose which schools to apply to.
I think it's really sad that that person won't upload the letter more than 5 times. I wonder if they could follow up or somehow get somebody from the university to help, like a chair or something. It's really not that much work. You don't really have to usually customize the letter too much, or usually at all, for where you're applying. But okay, let's just say you have the constraint and you can't push back against it. I think it's quite tricky. You definitely would ideally want to talk to an advisor and so forth. But I want to second what Nathan said earlier and really just say, like, think about fit with the people that you would work with. You know, the places you're more likely to get in are the places where the person that reads this is like, oh, this is the student that's going to be a perfect fit for me, and we're going to be able to do amazing work together that, you know, wouldn't work out for other people. Those are the things that really stand out. So I would take...
if an advisor is saying they'll only submit 5 letters, I wonder if that should be taken as a signal. Like, if is that an advisor that you know well, or who knows you well, or is it somebody you asked because they're a big name? And if so, maybe they're trying to send you a hint that maybe there are other people who would be better to ask. I'm not sure.
Might be a international thing too. I don't know, but I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I also kind of understand why there's such a constraint. I know some professors use find someone to help them submit the letters, and I wonder if it's possible to kind of talk them through to find out a way to submit more letters. Because like they don't only to. I think the most time should be spent on writing the letter, and submitting the letter doesn't sound like too much actual efforts on top of that. So I feel that maybe you can try to talk them through to see like if it's possible to figure out a way to submit more letters than that.
Yeah.
Maybe we should turn this into a discussion of like how many schools should you apply to, period. Does anyone have opinions on that?
I did around 10, 15 just for statistics purpose.
It does cost money. Although you can, if you're in a financial hardship situation, a lot of schools, if you ask, will give you a fee waiver. So do look into that option if the cost of applying is a concern. Yeah, I would say on the order of 10 to 15, or at least that was what I did, but that was a long time ago, of course. If you're applying to lots of really top places, then those are going to be less safe bets. So you might consider applying to more if you're going to apply to a bunch of top 10 schools, let's say.
Yeah, I think I have like a kind of like a personal experience of applying to probably too few schools. So after I graduated from my, I was an undergrad student. I mean, back then I only applied to the top 5 kind of PhD programs, and I didn't get in any of these. So after I graduated from my master program, I applied to around like 15 universities. So I think you should definitely try to kind of apply to as many as you can afford. Unfortunately, applying to grad schools does cost a lot of money.
But sometimes you can.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Sometimes you can find a lab that looks like a really good fit, even if it's not even if it's not the best known obvious school that everyone else will be applying to. So that could be a way to have sort of a safety school, or at least a safer option. Of course, you don't always know whether the professor will be taking students. So it might be good to list 2 or 3 potential advisors in the department.
Okay, thank you. Just for statistics, I applied to 6 universities, and yeah, that time I was in Romania, so it was pretty expensive to apply. So it's good to know that there's this fee waivers. I didn't know about at that time, but it's really useful. Okay, so I see much more questions arriving. So yeah, there are also some questions about if you have a low GPA. So as an undergrad with a low GPA, should I contact professors or apply directly to schools for PhD?
Maybe they're worried about being filtered out during the shortlisting period.
Oh, I see. Can the professor intervene for those students?
Yeah, I think again, it requires some amount of context, but I think Nathan said earlier, I think low grades specifically in like CS and related courses will be a bigger red flag than low grades in general. But if you do have very low GPA overall, I mean, that is, you can get filtered out at pre-filtering stages for that. It's not clear if faculty can rescue or not, but if you have that, you could try. Although honestly, we also get tons of emails constantly, so I feel very bad about it, but I have so many emails from people that I don't respond to about admission stuff, and I just can't do it. Like, it would take hours a day, you know, not that bad, but it would take way more time than I have. So, you know, you just got to do the best you can with it. And I think that, you know, the things that help if you have a low GPA are like great research experience, or, you know, for that matter, industry experience. So you can take a break for a few years and just get further from the classes. And then it seems kind of less pressing in certain ways. So maybe you can get into industry lab, work yourself into advanced development or a more researchy type engineering role or something, and then come back. Or you could go do a master's and get more grades that way or something else. Again, if it was older, lower grades, and the more recent ones were better. But I think just by itself, if it was really bad across the board and you didn't have any other connections, you know, it could be a filter situation. And every school probably does it slightly differently, but I'm guessing that's pretty general.
I would also, since we're talking about quantitative numbers here, I would say that GREs probably don't count for a lot unless you get a really low score on quantitative reasoning. That might be a red flag, but a lot of schools now don't even require GREs. So if you're wondering whether it's worth it to pay for those, I would say probably not.
And for me, since I don't have a lot of experience kind of looking at kind of grades from different countries, actually, when I got the email and they mentioned that this student got like 17 out of 20, I honestly, I don't understand what that means. And I tend to look more at the research record compared to grades.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like looking at the research record, and I've also interacted with PhD students or postdocs who help filter the application, but sometimes it's their first time to look at an Iranian application. They don't know the school, they don't know the grades. So they tend to reach out to any Iranian friends among us to understand, to translate it to what it actually means. Yeah. So next, we'll probably move to SOP related questions. Let me have a try for grouping questions. So some of the SOP question is about, suppose they have 3 type of elements. First is, I did this. Second, I learned this by doing the first thing. The third one, I want to do this in the future. How would you rank the importance of them? And also in the third part, I want to do this in the future. When describing this, how to balance between how narrow, how specific the proposed research direction should be. Because perhaps the professor interested in that is not interested in you, but maybe should you say just a generic NLP topic instead?
One comment here is that the style of these statements is a little bit different depending on US versus non-US. So I think in some European universities, they ask for an actual research proposal, which is sort of like, you have 3 years to do a project. What is this project going to be about? That's not exactly what I would expect at a US institution, because you have longer, you are taking classes at the beginning, so you're learning about more about depth about the field. But I am looking for just some broad ideas about the kinds of things you're interested in, maybe giving examples of things you've already done and would like to continue, or a new area with a subfield or some other topic that you're interested in. But I'm probably going to see whether that's close enough to the things I'm interested in, but I'm probably not going to just say it has to be exactly the thing I'm working on, or else I'm not going to want to take you as a student.
And regarding the relative importance of what you have done and versus what you propose to do in the future, since I mean, at least my goal is to kind of find students who have the ability to do strong independent research. I think the best evidence is you have done that in the past. So if you have that kind of research record, it's definitely good to emphasize that. But if not, maybe you can kind of show that you have a good knowledge of the field by writing a kind of very convincing proposal.
Yeah, and I'll second all that and maybe add a little bit more color if I can. But okay, so this wasn't the question, but I just had to say it. Like, do not start your statement of purpose saying that you became interested in AI in middle school and then proceed chronologically through kind of all the evidence you have up to grad school time. You know, this so anytime you find yourself writing a statement of purpose that's like chronological about your life, like that was maybe appropriate for undergrad, I'm not sure actually, but it's definitely not the best way to do grad school. So really center your research, talk about your experience, you know, don't give us your personal life history. And then there's a really kind of a template to these statement of purposes, right? Like the top few paragraphs, I mean, the top one paragraph is like an overview of the kind of stuff. And then you go through almost often paragraph by paragraph, different experiences you've had. And then I think as Nathan or maybe Yuntian both were saying at the end, there's kind of usually a school specific paragraph, right? And so it's kind of, if you can get examples from people that have applied previously, it's really kind of illustrative to see how this works, right? It's kind of, if you don't know, you can't guess, right? And then the last paragraph, really, you say what you want to work on, but then I even encourage the students I'm advising to, hedge and give me a general area that I'm interested in and list names of specific faculty that you're interested in. Faculty will literally just search for their name and all the statements of purposes that get submitted if the tools support it. And then, by all means, it's great to be able to propose some very specific research topics because it shows kind of research awareness and maturity. But again, I'm not going to hold you to doing those specific topics that you wrote there, at least this is the US style. But kind of seeing that overall template, seeing that pattern, seeing the focus on research, seeing the ability to propose ideas, like that makes me, get a lot more confidence that you sort of know what research is going to be and that you'll enjoy it. I mean, one worry is that, you've been so focused on grades, so focused on like, this week is due, this week is due, this week is due, that the transition to research is just a shocking experience for a lot of people. Like it's just open-ended. It's a hugely different way of thinking about things. And, some people just don't make the transition, and we're looking for evidence that you kind of will do really well in grad school. Sorry, that was kind of rambling, but vaguely related to statement of purpose.
Well, it's become a bigger challenge now for faculties just because of this ChatGPT. Like, will it be very confusing to recognize what's the student actually writing?
Actually, I'll start the first, since I have strong feelings about this. I think you should feel free to use ChatGPT all you want. I think it's a glorified grammar checker. And if anything, it kind of helps normalize across the people that can afford to like hire writing tutors or that have a social network. But you are responsible for what it says, right? So you need to read through it and make sure it's saying true things. And if you can like make something a little bit more interesting in your style or something that can help draw people's attention, but I care a lot more about the content than I do about the style, barring if the style is so hard to get through that, it's challenging. And so I actually think go to town, use ChatGPT. I don't care, but be responsible for what's in there. That's what really matters. I know I might be an outlier.
So I think I agree that it matters more in terms of the content rather than the style. So one suggestion I would give is to avoid using like really flowery language. Like sometimes I got emails saying that this student has made significant contributions to NLP. And when I read this word significant, like I don't know, like I think I would kind of first try to kind of probably as somebody in academia, my first reaction is I need to find evidence for that. And if you do not have strong evidence, I don't think it's good to actually use this word. It's better to kind of make it more empirical and show some evidence of how significant your contributions are. And and one thing I tend to notice from ChatGPT generations is it tend to use these kind of wide words, probably because it doesn't know what's the actual content. So yeah, I agree. You should be responsible for whatever is being generated by these writing assistance tools.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the papers that we write are making arguments, right? And an SOP is making an argument about your, preparedness to do research. So focus on giving us the evidence and the specificity as opposed to talking about, flowery things about how important AI is to the world and stuff like that. We already know that.
Yeah, I also agree with that. Sometimes I started using Grammarly for like, especially as a non-native English speaker. It really helps when you want to clarify some things, or you have an idea what you want to talk about, but you don't know exactly how to express it. You can just ask like an automatic model some grammar correction, or ChatGPT to try to rephrase it in a clear way. Like, that's really helpful. But again, yeah, you should take control of what the content should actually be, like what you decide what you want to talk about. Okay, and to move on to the next question, I was also looking at the most voted question, and Zhijing also posted that in the chat. It's the most voted question, but also it's a bit specific, so it's a bit hard to interpret, but we're gonna try. Okay, so the question is how to write a strong SOP as a PhD candidate specializing in imbalanced textual data with postdoc positions opening mainly in medical AI and social media. Many people voted this question, so it seems to be of interest. Medical AI and social media.
This is for a PhD application?
It sounds more like a postdoc application, right? Because
Or
the
it
person
can
is
be,
already a PhD candidate. Or the person wants to do a second PhD. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, postdoc. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if postdoc positions generally ask for the same kind of statement of purpose. I know sometimes jobs will ask for a cover letter, which is sort of like an overview of who you are and why you're applying. But I would say in general, you're trying to make a persuasive argument that your experience is a good and interests are a good fit for whatever the position is.
yeah, we can probably keep it, and if anyone have answers, we can type it in the comments. And then moving on, a couple of other questions are about people with previous experience not in NLP. Then how can they include research in unrelated fields? Something I noticed is that sometimes there are non-CS people also getting into NLP nowadays, or it could be people who have mostly maybe engineer type of experience, but want to try a PhD. Yeah, but let's make it open-ended. So for all kind of non-NLP backgrounds, should they include research in these things, or in general, how should they enhance their profile?
I mean, so I personally like to see at least some research experience. Maybe it's not like with an NLP faculty member, but maybe it's computational linguistics or something with language, or something with something computational, something with machine learning. I would definitely like to see some research experience. Not everyone who starts a PhD really has a lot of research experience. And there are some labs where they are mainly, they feel like different faculty have different criteria they look for, right? So some faculty really want strong engineers, and they feel like they can train them in the science and the research. Other faculty care less about engineering and more about the scientific side. So you can look at students who are already in labs to maybe get a sense of what the lab prioritizes and where their backgrounds are. So I definitely have students who double majored in CS and a language, for example.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I would just say in general, if you can find that fit, that if you have some sort of interdisciplinary background or different background, you know, if it's a bonus for the kind of work they want to do in that lab, that's where you're going to win. Whatever, you know, whatever the background is, it's about understanding the kind of research and the needs for that research, which I realize is hard as an outsider, but hopefully you have mentors and others that can help.
Yeah, I also noticed there are some labs that specifically like a certain undergrad major. Yeah, I know some labs where people specifically like physics major, and they think that people with that experience can have the right intuition for the research that the professor care about.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
some faculty are looking for math, really strong math skills, and they figure the other stuff can be taught during the PhD.
And also I wonder, like in the case of like no experience in, for example, NLP research, I wonder if it's better to kind of consider applying to an academic master program like the CMU Masters in Language Technology programs, or I know that UIGC also has an academic master program where you can get funding for doing a short-term 2-year research. If you are doing a PhD, it's like a long-time commitment. And if you have no experience in this direction, like what if you don't like it after being there for 2 years and realizing that this is not something you want to spend your time on? So if I were in that situation, I would probably do like a master first to get some experience.
So you named 2 good programs, but also there's European master's programs. So in Europe, you normally have to do a master's before a PhD, and the master's is the coursework part, and the PhD is the just writing your dissertation part and research. And the master's usually has to involve some research, like a thesis or something. Yeah, if you want to apply for a master's, definitely consider that as a way to get some research experience.
And there are also industry positions too. They're much harder to find, but they are young investigator kind of positions, or even just doing industry work that's very cutting edge in terms of the modeling, like working with LLMs or something. There's more and more positions like that. And again, depends on what you want to do next, but those can be great experiences.
Yeah, I also wanted to share a bit from my experience, because actually when I applied to the PhD, I didn't have any NLP experience, but I had some computer vision experience, and it really, yeah, it's a different way of thinking. Like you see this through it's like a different way of looking at the research. And yeah, as you said, that the PhD in US, the first 2 years you take courses. So I took NLP course, and it was enough to get a good understanding of NLP. And then I continued working on multimodal. So at the intersection of computer vision and NLP. So that's also a possibility if the professor, the advisor is interested in multimodal or the intersection of different domains, you can have an advantage there. Okay, another question. Let's see. Maybe this one. When the faculty look for SOP, what does it mean by a good research taste? What research directions or methods do professors usually value?
The hard one. I don't know if there is a usual.
I mean, I think it's highly personalized, right? You know, roughly, you know, I mean, one of my classic examples is like, you don't want to be writing papers just kind of barely pushing the state of the art on various very narrow problems, but you never know, there might be some lab where that, like a really engineering focused lab, and that's the kind of student they're looking for.
Yeah, to add to that, I would say some labs really value impact and applications, whereas others value more fundamental research, for example. But exactly what counts as taste in any of those is very hard to define.
So, I mean, if there are, if this is kind of, you can't really do too much of this, but if there are like, labs you really want to customize for, which mostly you don't do, to be honest, but the thing to do would be to like look at their papers and sort of get a feel, if you want to know what I find interesting, all you have to do is pick random 5 of my papers and read the abstracts, and you'll see what kind of story I like to make in my papers. So I actually think you could get a feel for individual lab style like pretty quickly. But the thing is, you're going to apply to lots of labs, and even within a university, you won't know exactly. You can't. They couldn't get just from University of Washington, where I am. There are many NLP labs, and you wouldn't want to like only narrow yourself to one when you apply. So it's just tricky. I think in general, you just got to present the best general case you can, and you can't really customize that much. You'll just end up spinning your wheels and putting like way more work than what it's worth into the effort, to be honest.
But if you do have connections in the field, so advisors who are in the field, or friends, people through social media or whatever, who are already more senior, they can often help figure out which labs might be a good fit for your interests and styles.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, a piece of meta advice I give to everybody is just like try to find as many mentors as you can. People generally like to give advice and like to be helpful and share their knowledge. So like the more people you can ask advice from, the better. So congratulations on taking a step in coming and attending this. But we don't have all the answers, so.
Great. I noticed that we do have a lot of questions. I believe this is a critical time for a lot of people. If we didn't manage to answer all of the questions, feel free to ask them in the Ask Me Anything channel on Slack. In the same time, I also pick a couple of other upvoted ones and posted them in the Zoom now. Maybe any of us can quickly use 1 or 2 sentences to pick things that we can answer. I can pick the second last one. The question is, if my interests are multidisciplinary and no one research advisor can really advise me on the project, how can I appeal to a potential advisor in my SOP? I think you'll still probably need to translate what you are interested in to align with that advisor's interest. Another hint is to look at that advisor's publication to see how diverse it is. Usually more diverse one might indicate that they are inclusive for what they let students to pursue. Great. For any other questions?
Yeah, maybe I can take the first one. If I have worked with multiple professors, how do I choose which ones I should ask for a letter of recommendation? I would definitely recommend someone who knows you pretty well, better kind of have some close collaboration on a project. I think it's better than having like a big name that actually doesn't kind of read a strong letter for you. So you need someone who vouches for you for your kind of ability to become an independent researcher, not kind of just a big name kind of letter writer.
I see a question about how many professors to list in the statement of purpose. I suggest 2 to 3, because if you are listing, 5, that maybe suggests you don't really know what research area you want. Unless it's a huge department with lots of professors in the area. But if you're suggesting 2 or 3, that leaves open for the possibility that one of them may not be taking a student or whatever, but you still have some options. And if you have interdisciplinary interests, you could maybe say, I'd be interested in working with 2 different, being co-advised by 2 people in the department. It gets a little harder if you're looking between departments, but in some institutions, that's also possible.
Okay, great. So there's a question: how do you encourage students from diverse backgrounds to apply and position themselves well? I think this is a real struggle for the field in general. We could all be doing better. Individual universities definitely have mechanisms to encourage diverse applications of all different sorts. And if anyone on this call is from those, I encourage you to apply to everywhere that you can, but definitely University of Washington. And, to position yourself well, I think, tell us about yourself, and as much as you can tie it to sort of research opportunities potential, the better. But I think it's okay to just highlight diversity. Often there's even a diversity statement. As you get more senior, you'll have opportunities to do mentoring and things to help with sort of accessibility and opportunities for folks. And I think it's just great. And I think please apply and let people know your background, and it will factor into decisions, and mostly in terms of the research you can do, but it does come in other small ways too.
I can also take a question. This one, my plan is apply next year. Meanwhile, I'm looking for mentoring to start my research from now. What do you suggest to find mentorship? So I can say how it works here with our lab at the University of Michigan. We get a lot of requests for mentorship from undergrads or master students, and they either. So I think the best way is to see if the lab has like sometimes some labs have like some document online where you can enroll, like write your name and why you're interested in working on research with them. And then they're going to pair you with a PhD student who can mentor you, and you work together on a project. And many students here get their first experience in research like this. Another way is to go directly to your professor, like after the class, after a lecture. I think we had a few undergrads who just went to RADA. They were doing very well in the class. They were very excited about the subject, and said that they want to continue working on this. And RADA just recommended them to us, and we just interviewed them, and we continue working with them on research projects. So yeah, just go to your professor, your favorite topic, or apply directly on online on the lab's webpage.
And don't get discouraged if the first professor you ask doesn't have room, because some of us are just very busy and the labs are already full. But hopefully there are, a few different labs who are doing somewhat related research.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, if you're in a situation where a university that doesn't have great research faculty, which I think many people are, it's harder, and that's just a fact. You could try to transition through some of the other mechanisms we said before, but there are also like open source communities through Hugging Face and Luther AI and other things like that. Even if you can't, for example, get a faculty mentor because there are no in your university in that area, but you have contributed to some open source thing, even if it's not research, but it's in your area, like we will account for your background too, right? Like there just were no opportunities. You can help us understand that context. You can help us understand the really cool things you went and did with what you could do. And that's great. That shows initiative, which is another thing that's really important for research success. But it's hard.
Yeah, and maybe I can pick this question really quickly. Should we contact faculty in advancement of applying? At least for me, I really don't feel it helps. I think like if you are afraid of your kind of application be kind of filtered through some screening process, it might be even better to kind of like contact the faculty after you have submitted your materials, such that they can kind of check whether you are kind of a matching applicant. But I just don't see any benefit of whether contacting faculty in advance.
Great. Nice. Thanks all for the suggestions. And I really appreciate all the mentors' time to answer these critical questions important for people who are in the important career changing stage now. And yeah, thanks again. And then we can stay active on Slack if anyone needs follow-up questions. And then great, we'll conclude today's session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for organizing.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye.